Hello. Let's stay with this style. No soft music voice, no guiding phrases, just real English thinking. Because if you're honest, this is how English actually happens for you. You're not sitting calmly repeating affirmations. You're in the moment. Someone's there. A question lands. And your mind does something very specific. It pauses. Not a long pause, a micro pause. Most people never notice it, but it changes everything. You're listening, you're following, you understand the meaning. Then the focus shifts, not outward, inward. And the first thing that happens is not words, it's evaluation. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quick internal check. Okay, my turn. Now. That moment feels neutral, but it carries weight. Because the moment you evaluate, you stop moving, and spoken language depends on movement. Now listen carefully. When you speak your native language, you don't prepare speech. Speech arrives already moving. English doesn't arrive like that yet, so you wait. And waiting feels responsible. It feels like you're doing the right thing. But waiting kills momentum. Momentum is the engine of fluency. Now slow this down. You don't actually wait for words, you wait for certainty. Certainty that the sentence will be correct, certainty that it will sound natural, certainty that it won't expose you. But spoken language never gives certainty in advance. It gives it after you begin. Now think about this. If you're about to step onto a moving walkway and you wait until it stops moving, you'll never step on. English is the same. You don't step onto a still sentence, you step onto motion. Now let's talk about the physical side again. Right before you speak, your breath changes. It becomes smaller. Your jaw tightens just a little. Your tongue hesitates. This is not fear. This is control. You're trying to control the outcome. Control feels safe, but control freezes movement. Now let's talk about the thought loop. It sounds like this. I know what I want to say. Wait, how do I start? Maybe I should say it differently. And now you're late, not because you're slow, because you stepped out of time. Conversation doesn't wait for perfection. It moves on. Now, let's be very clear. This has nothing to do with level. Advanced learners do this too, sometimes more than beginners, because they know enough to monitor themselves. Now, listen to something important. Fluency is not the absence of mistakes. It's the absence of hesitation before movement. Mistakes happen during motion. Hesitation happens before it. Now let's talk about how fluent speakers actually start speaking. They don't start with meaning. They start with sound, a filler, a connector, a breath. Well, so, yeah, These are not weak. They are entry points. They buy time inside motion, not outside it. This is crucial. Most learners try to think first, then speak. Fluent speakers speak first, then think while speaking. This feels dangerous at first because it removes control, but it restores flow. Now let's connect this to shadowing again. Shadowing forces movement. You can't stop to evaluate. You can't wait. You follow. That's why it works. Not because it improves pronunciation, but because it trains non-interruption. Your system learns that speaking does not require permission. It requires continuation. Now let's talk about silence. Silence itself is not the problem. The problem is what you do inside silence. If silence is active, thinking, observing, judging, pressure grows. If silence is neutral, breathing, staying present, speech returns naturally. Now let's talk about an uncomfortable truth. You don't actually need to finish sentences. You only need to keep the interaction alive. Most learners aim for completion. Fluent speakers aim for connection. Connection tolerates imperfection. Completion does not. Now think about your own experience. How many times did you stay silent because the sentence wasn't ready? How many times did you know the idea but miss the moment? That's not English failure, that's timing. Now, let's talk about timing honestly. Timing is trained, not taught. You don't learn it from rules, you learn it from exposure without pressure. That's why long listening helps. That's why shadowing helps. That's why calm repetition helps. They restore timing. Now, let's slow down again. Not to relax, just to reset attention. Take a breath. Good. Notice how when you stop judging the moment opens. Now let's talk about trust. Trust does not mean confidence, it means willingness to move without guarantees. English becomes fluent when you allow it to organize itself as you speak, not before. Now let's end this session in the same style. No affirmations, just a clear idea. If English feels blocked, it's not missing, it's waiting for movement. Start earlier, start smaller, start messier. English will meet you halfway. This is not motivation, this is mechanics. We'll continue in this voice next time. More real time, more usable, more honest. See you in the next session.